Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about specifically Keyforge and Dungeons and Dragons. So basically, Keyforge is a brand new tabletop role-playing. Keyforge is a brand new collectible card game that was announced and previewed at Gen Con. It was one of the most exciting games that came out of Gen Con 2018. And so one of the things I'm going to be talking about today is I think that Keyforge, this brand new collectible card game, could be a major threat to Dungeons & Dragons and the well-being of Dungeons & Dragons overall. Okay? All right, so let's talk about it. All right. So basically, I'm going to talk about, and specifically Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Okay? All right, so let's talk about Keyforge. So Keyforge is a collectible card game. It is not released. It is expected to drop this fall, and it should be available, to my knowledge, for purchase before Christmas. You should be able to buy it for Christmas as Christmas presents, right? And that's a big deal because it means it's gonna push the number of items that are available. Okay. All right. So, excuse me. Now here's the key. This was created by Richard Garfield. So Keyforge is a collectible card game created by Richard Garfield. Richard Garfield is the gentleman who invented Magic the Gathering, the first collectible card game, and in addition to that, by far still the most powerful collectible card game, the most valuable collectible card game, the most successful collectible card game that on the market, without exception. All right, so it's a really, really fascinating occurrence. Now, here's the thing. If it was just another regular collectible card game, I wouldn't be talking about it. But this is really different and really unique. All right, so what is unique about Keyforge? Well, Keyforge is a collectible card game with no deck building. No deck building. All right? Now, at first, I can hear every collectible card game person out there going, "What? That's going to stink. I won't play that." You will play it. You will play Keyforge. Guarantee it, right? If you are a CCG player, you will be playing Keyforge, right? And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but I guarantee it. Like, it's coming, right? Okay. So here's the issue, right? The reason there is no deck building in it is every single deck of Keyforge is 37 cards long, right? Now, from what I could see, essentially 34 of those are playable cards, and then 3 other cards are really, really weird and special. So one, each deck has almost like a banner card. It has a flag card that is the flag of that unique deck. And that card is 100%, that card is unique. There will never be another card that matches it. And then also the deck itself is unique as well. And so the two other cards are 2 other cards that list all the cards that are in that Keyforge deck. So each deck has a card catalog that is custom, listing the cards that are in that deck. And in addition, it has a banner card. And in addition to that, every single card is truly unique. Like, there will not be other cards that match them, right? That is new, absolutely new. That has never been done before. So, actually, Tom Vassell, he is the highest tier of board game reviewers. He reviewed this game and he said this game would have been impossible to print even 5 years ago. So Richard Garfield, one of the most innovative game designers that's ever been born, has created a new CCG that leverages technology, right? And the other thing is he's not with some jank little, like garage band company. He is with FFG, Fantasy Flight Games. What? Right? So, like, there's money behind this, right? So Keyforge is going to release this fall, and it is truly unique, and it has the distinct possibility of either minorly disrupting or majorly disrupting the CCG field. right? Well, okay, so I can hear your question. Well, what's that got to do with the price of meat in Faerun? What's that got to do with Dungeons and Dragons? It's got a lot to do with Dungeons and Dragons. Guess what? Guess why? I think you guys all know. I talked about this pretty extensively. Ravnica. So the success of Magic the Gathering used to not be intimately tied to Dungeons and Dragons. But guess what? It is now, because Ravnica is an official setting, is the only official setting with a real hardcover that exists, right? And it'll be out in November for Dungeons and Dragons, right? So the real official setting of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is a Magic the Gathering setting, which is about to undergo a ripple or a tidal wave from Keyforge. Great. This is wonderful. Now, our precious Dungeons and Dragons game is actually under threat from the disruptions of the CCG market. So wonderful. I'm like, oh man, I am worried, right? Okay. All right, so let's talk about Keyforge, right? Now, is it going to be a ripple or is it going to be a tsunami, right? Okay, so let's talk about it. All right. So here's the thing. So let's talk about the craft and the play and the setting of Keyforge. Okay. The craft of the game itself looks okay. The art looks okay. And the design on the cards looks okay. Okay. The design is brilliant. The design is absolutely brilliant. The design is so strong, it makes me think at a global level. I'm an American exceptionalist. I really believe that America is the greatest nation on the planet without exception. And here's why. It's the issue of iteration versus innovation. The rest of the world iterates, we innovate. At the macro level, there's certainly exceptions to this, but at the macro level, America is the innovation engine of the world. In 1993, Richard Garfield created the collectible card game. There have been massive amounts of iteration in that field for 25 years. That's how old Magic the Gathering is. 25 years old, right? But there's really been no major innovations until Richard Garfield came and innovated it again, right? And what he has done, and the design on this is he has made it so that, by the way, individual cards in Keyforge should have 0 value. If you take a card out of your Keyforge deck and give it to someone in Magic the Gathering, you could easily sell a card for $300. You could sell some cards for $3,000, right? But there's a huge market for used, there's a huge aftermarket for opened Magic the Gathering cards, which they're collectible, clearly, right? Well, that's just it. Keyforge, the individual cards are worth nothing. The value is in the decks. If you break up a deck, the entire deck is worthless, right? And each card in that deck is worthless, right? Now, I can hear CCGers already going, what? That's a terrible idea. This is going to be terrible. You don't know what you're talking about, right? Here's why, right? This is the key. Here's why this matters, right? A lot of CCGers are going to be like, oh, I love building decks. Well, I'm going to tell you a secret out there, right? One, I played Magic the Gathering since 1993. I had a hiatus between 2001 and 2007, right, where I played just a little tiny bit, but I played all the way through for the rest of the time, and I play actively. I play every Friday night in Friday Night Magic, and I have played in every single pre-release since 2007, right? So I know the game, right? And I'm going to tell you a secret. There's virtually no deck building happening in Magic the Gathering. That game has already got to the Keyforge stage. And here's why. I go to Friday Night Magic every single week, right? There's 30 people at Friday Night Magic. And 27 of them are playing a deck that they never designed, right? And me and 2 other schmucks are there playing, crazy builds where we went to the pre-release, we bought a few cards, maybe we bought a few more packs, right? I haven't even bought a fat pack. I haven't even bought a box, for each release. I'm just buying the cards, doing the best I can, and trading with my old cards, right? And building custom decks that no one has a name for because I'm the only person playing them, right? I get crushed every week. I go 1-5, there's 5 rounds, or I go 2-5 if I'm lucky, right? And what is really happening is 27 of those 30 players are playing decks that came straight from the Pro Tour that they never designed. Half the players aren't even playing decks that they own or built themselves. What I see a lot is, you'll get a player who really knows the game, has built six decks, and she gives a deck to her boyfriend, and her boyfriend plays her deck in the, it's crazy. Like, there's virtually no deck building happening in Magic the Gathering. It's all net decks, right? So what Richard Garfield really did with Keyforge is he broke net decks. He snapped them over his knee like a staff, right? And that's incredible, right? And one thing that really amazes me is, why didn't anybody else do this? Why didn't anybody else actually do any innovation in the CCG? The entire world, every other country in the world had the opportunity to innovate in the CCG space, and not a single country did. And so here we see the biggest innovation coming in the CCG field from the same guy who created it in 1993, right? Like, America, when it comes to innovation, there's nobody who can touch us. We're so far ahead of the pack. It's like a bicycle versus a Lamborghini, right? And that is astounding to me, right? All right, now, the design on this is incredible. The design on this is awesome, right? That's the heart of Keyforge, okay? Now, the last part is the setting. The setting looks terrible. The setting looks nonsensical and non-compelling, right? Now, here's the issue. A lot of people were like, well, that's it. Keyforge isn't going to sell. No, Keyforge is going to sell like crazy out of the gate. The question is, by the way, without a doubt, Keyforge is going to sell like crazy out of the gate. Here's why. All you need to play the game is a $10 deck. Done. That's all, right? $10 is nothing. $10 is the price of the pizza that a Magic player buys when they're at Friday Night Magic. $10 for a Magic player is a fart in the wind. It's nothing, right? So basically, I honestly think every single Magic player is going to try this. And the reason why is there's just no reason not to. Magic the Gathering is one of the most ridiculously expensive games on the planet. It is absurd how ridiculous it is, how expensive it is to play Magic the Gathering, right? And so if you can do a buy-in for $10, and this thing is as innovative and compelling at the whole game level, every single Magic player in the world is going to want to see this. I actually think this thing's going to get people who stop playing Magic to come back. So I actually think the percentage of Magic players that are going to play this is like 140%. I think it'll get every playing Magic player out there and 40% of the people who quit. Like, it's going to be ridiculous, right? So all Magic players are going to try this. And so one, if you can, pre-order this, because I think the initial run is going to sell out like hotcakes. It's going to go very, very fast, right? And here's the key. Keyforge is going to be like, boom, here it is, right? And Richard Garfield is going to be standing on the mountain again, right? Now, one of the things that's incredible is the guy who put Wizards of the Coast on the map is now the greatest threat to Wizards of the Coast in 2018, which is pretty amazing. Talk about irony. And Keyforge is an absolute direct threat to Magic the Gathering, which now it is a direct threat to Dungeons and Dragons, right? So the success of Keyforge can directly hurt Wizards of the Coast and disrupt their plans and disrupt what's going to happen for Magic the Gathering. And the reason why is the only actual real official setting, right? And I do not count that Pinocchio product that had playtest ripped off of it called Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. The only real official setting with a hardcover that functions as the actual setting of 5th edition is Ravnica. So the real setting of 5th edition is a Magic the Gathering setting, and Magic the Gathering is about to be hit by a ripple or a tsunami. The only question is which, right? So it's going to be very, very interesting what's going to happen, right? So basically, so it's really strange that the fate, or actually, I wouldn't say, it's going to be at least, Wizards of the Coast. I don't think this is going to shut down. This does not have the possibility of shutting down Dungeons & Dragons for at least 5 years. But in 5 years, Keyforge could absolutely determine who Dungeons & Dragons is sold to. It could determine who Wizards of the Coast is sold to, right? And if you think I'm overestimating that, look at the history of Pokemon and Magic and how the success of those games has absolutely prompted the sale of entire companies, right? Because it's happened before, right? So Keyforge is really, really intimately tied to the well-being of Dungeons & Dragons for the next 5 years, and could absolutely determine who owns Dungeons & Dragons and who owns Wizards of the Coast, right? It could be a sunsetting for Magic the Gathering within 2-3 years. And the reason why is the design on this is like nothing you've ever seen. Now, I actually think there's some serious execution problems for Keyforge itself in its first iteration, but it doesn't matter because the kernel, the idea is absolutely brilliant, and it has a strong, strong barrier to market. You cannot compete with Keyforge without a team of high math developers. Not even regular JavaScript developers can help you here. You need people who can deal with massive sets of numbers and parallelization issues, and this is high math, high code, right? The design of Keyforge is staggeringly complex and makes Magic the Gathering, which was one of the most complex games on the planet, look like strawberry shortcake, comparatively in complexity-wise. So get ready for Keyforge and understand that the well-being of Dungeons & Dragons and the well-being of Wizards of the Coast is now intimately tied to the success or failure of Keyforge. So I'm calling it now, just making a prediction. Thank you very much. Please consider liking and subscribing. Take care.